Good evening, dear friends, and welcome to yet another exciting edition on our program, Mountain Echoes. Happy New Week to you all. And what am I going to say again? The month is almost getting to an end, so we're welcoming the new month of November 2023. Today, we shall be looking at this very important topic which concerns us, which concerns the country, but particularly the Southwest region, since we lived in the Southwest region. It is the poor waste management in Cameroon. Who is to be blamed? Poor waste management in Cameroon. Who is to be blamed? We have persons who live in the Southwest regions, those who have been there for years, and they're still there. Others who maybe have been there for 5-10 years. That is why we have Pa John from Bay. He's a senior citizen in the Southwest region. He has been in Boya for many years, many years. Pa John, you're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
It's always a pleasure to be here.
Someone just accused me that the road leading to where your house is, that I had to go see what is happening there. So you're going to tell the viewers, you're going to tell the friends of Mountain Echoes precisely about this waste management. You compare the days of, I don't know how to put it, maybe when Ahijo was still the president, or maybe the early 80s or 90s, that we never had the SACAM and the council so maybe they're not so prominent like this time around, and today that we have them with the high level of technology and new things that we have, innovations and the rest, but it seems as if things are falling apart. So you're going to tell them about that. Thank you for accepting the invitation.
Thank you.
Yes, we have Mr. Lucas G. He is a human rights activist and a civil society leader. Mr. Lucas, you're welcome and good evening.
Good evening. It's a pleasure. I think it's one of the most difficult things to manage in countries. Your topic is waste. It's one of the most difficult. That is why if you look at other countries, as we will be looking at the topic, they are not managing it the way we see it. One of the most effective ways to manage your waste is to think about recycling your waste, because waste will always be generated. But as the topic says, we'll be looking at who has for responsibility and how do we go about that, because it's a dire need. And we shall also be looking at the effects, because apart from being debt on our streets, what comes out of it? What are the effects of the debt we have on our streets? It's important.
Is it for decoration? We're going to hear about that. If actually it's for decoration, we have Nameshringi and Jemal Lyonga, journalist, conflict resolution student, that's masters, the master's level in the University of Boya. Madam and Jemal Lyonga, you're welcome and good evening.
Thank you very much, Pate. It's always a real pleasure to be invited to your program.
Yeah, like we said at the beginning, we're looking at this topic, poor waste management in Cameroon. Who is to be blamed? Poor waste management in Cameroon. Who is to be blamed? It is no news to all of us that government officials have been instructed to mutualize their efforts and find immediate solutions to degrading roads and garbage heaps in the capital city. We are told Prime Minister, Head of Government Joseph Jongute urged members of government and municipal authorities directly concerned with management of roads and garbage during an ministerial meeting at the Star Building in Yaoundé this Thursday rather, the 26th of October 2023. And we're telling the Prime Minister himself that Yaoundé is not just the only place. Boya, or the Southwest region in particular, is not freed from this. I'll call it maybe Kanka. Looking at the topic of today's edition, Mr. Lucas, what do you have to tell the viewers about it?
Looking at what the Prime Minister said, I want to take it from the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
You know, when the Prime Ministry observes and decides to place what was known as an urgent call, it was an impromptu meeting which we had with the ministers on the 26th. And one of the key take-home in that was, how do we make our cities better? And this is where I say, I am happy that he started by taking the responsibility as was given to him by Cameroonians. You know, I'm of the opinion that a government that is put in place by people, the government is a steward to the people. I am glad, as opposed to those who think that he ought to have called some other persons involved. Now, looking at the garbage that we have on our street, it is no news that everywhere in Cameroon stinks. Everywhere in Cameroon. You go to Douala, there are places in Douala you cannot see. There are places in Douala you see an open bar, you sit there, and the next thing you see someone's sewage running in gutters. That is to tell you the problem of waste management in Cameroon. The fundamental problem in Cameroon is the decision by members of government to monopolize the management of waste in our country. You cannot have a country with a growing number of people, with a growing number of cities and towns, and you decided to contract a single company to manage the waste. And in some cases, some councils are imposed upon to use that particular company. Because when you look at the situation of Boya, I remember when late Mayor Kema Patrick was still there. In one of the times Hisakam went on strike, he said he inherited a limping council and that he could not do anything to ensure that the debt that were heaped on our roads in the town could be taken off because there was no money for that contract. Now the question is, we have decentralized a lot as set on pieces of paper, and we are seeing it moving at the snail pace as often being trumpeted by the government of Cameroon that it is a gradual process. We do not dispute that it should always be a process. But we believe that when waste is concerned, it should not be a situation where you pick up a single person to manage waste. If you look at the level at which we now consume imported goods with plastic containers, plastic papers, and to imagine that this is the only company that should manage the waste, I see it as an outright failure. And this is where I've always said, these are reasons to continuously enriching a couple of people, a very few people. If you were to dig deep to understand how Hisakam got itself, Hisakam is prided to be the oldest company keeping towns clean in Cameroon. If you go to look at Hisakam, Hisakam has been in Cameroon for more than 30 years. For those who are seeing Hisakam in Boyard today or in the Southwest region a few years ago, remember it was a few years ago that some of us got to see Hisakam in Boyard. But Hisakam is an old company in Cameroon. And the question is, its efficiency is dropping, because if you look at towns like Yaoundé, I went to Yaoundé, and what I saw in Yaoundé, I asked myself a question. Could this indeed be a capital city of a country where the head of state of a country resides, looking at the level with which we heap garbage on our roads? We shall be looking at these things and the effects on this, because it is not only something that you detest, it is also coming with a lot, which today we are talking about putting money into managing this, putting money into managing that. I don't want to see the mismanagement of waste to be some kind of a game where some people want to understand how other things born out of poor waste management, how they could reap from it. Because this is basically what is happening. When you have health hazards resulting from waste, there is another team that is meant to combat these things. And I don't know what the public health officials also are doing, because they are expected to give report in accordance with what is on the field. I know that we are quick at falsifying report, but my major concern is, how do we manage the waste? And with this, as we move on, I have said, we have to go back to the drawing board to ensure that we have multiple companies that should come in if we have chosen to go what I will call the white man way. I know in terms of managing waste in the West, because we also have Hisakam. Hisakam is a French company. And if you go to places like France, where Hisakam is coming from, they do what we call waste segregation. They do segregate their waste. You have different types of waste. But you know, when you bundle these things in Cameroon, and the most appalling one in all is, we have somewhere that we go and dump. They are not recycled.
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Lucas. Since apart from this year, we tried like maybe to look at kind of maybe to compare to see what usually obtained during their days as early as it came to Boya and what we have today. What do you think about it, looking at the topic of today's edition, the poor waste management, and not necessarily maybe if we have maybe at the course of the program we call it maybe point fingers to particular persons or responsibility per se, because it is something that concerns everybody, but who maybe has a greater share of the responsibility, how maybe to lead this particular thing to ensure that we put things together. So what do you tell the public on just looking at the topic?
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to give my opinion of the present situation and to compare it with the past.
Yeah.
I grew up in the village. There was no thing called waste management because everybody was conscious of how to manage his waste.
Yeah.
So to begin with, I'll point fingers. And the finger I'm pointing is to the person who dumped the waste where it shouldn't be. And I was inspired too when I was growing up by the famous speech from John Kennedy when he was inaugurated. It was 20th of January 1961.
Yeah.
He said that ask ye not what the government is doing for you, but ask yourself what you're doing for yourself.
Yeah.
So it is on that basis that I stand. And I think that all of the dirt, all of the mess we have around, whether managing it or not managing it properly, is us. So I point a finger at us. I learned a lot of things from my grandmother when she I don't think she knew the word waste. She called it dirt. When she wakes up in the morning, she sweeps the house, sweeps the wood ash from the fire and dumped it in her own farm under the plantain tree, the plant. She never dumped it in another person's place. When I was growing up, I was taught that it is not good to dump your waste in waterways. I see it everywhere. Children's, what do you call it, that thing, the diapers. It's everywhere, and it's so nasty. And there are so many of them that I don't know how, like he's saying, how one company can manage those waste. How do you even recycle those things? I think that, again, to quote another person, what we are, if you ask for who is responsible, I'll give 10% responsibility to the government and 90% to those of us who dump the dirt.
Yeah, thank you very much, Pa, from Baker. He's trying to maybe to put maybe the comparison what obtains, like he said in the past, and where maybe throwing the blame to that we ought to do our best to see how things will move. Madam Njema Lyonga, looking at the topic with present situation in Boya and Southwest region in general, let's say, or maybe not Cameroon, because there's no place that is safe. Because looking at the communique or maybe the meeting that the Prime Minister had on Thursday, the 26th of the month, you realize that his interest was really in Yaoundé, I'm sure, because he resides in Yaoundé. Looking at what is happening in Boya to Boya is not free from that particular disease. So what do you have to tell the public? Looking at the topic.
Okay, thank you very much, Pate, for queuing me in. I can say with all certainty that the aspects of waste management in the Southwest region and beyond is a very sad scenario because, in fact, the present situation we are facing is one of the worst situations we can ever face when it concerns waste disposal or waste management. Because if we date back some 15 years back, this was not the situation. In fact, without the companies we have here, we were far better. I can remember the time with my mom, what she would do is, when we are done with vegetables, we will take and we will put on the beds that she'll make to plants. So we throw them there, everything that gets rotten, vegetable like, we put them there. Then if we have plastics, we'll gather them together and burn under a tree. That's how we managed our waste. But coming now to our present scenario, our present situation, we are faced with a lot of constraints as to waste management. And I'll always say it this way: it is our social responsibility to keep our environment clean. I'll even go with a 98% blame, not even 90, because we are the ones who generate those waste. We buy them and we use them. So if there is anyone who ought to take waste management seriously, it's the consumer, more than even those who allow those products to come in. Because I believe we've had the opportunity to be under health talks and the advantages and disadvantages of keeping an environment. I don't even think it's an advantage of keeping an environment dirty. The disadvantages of littering, worst of all, keeping dirt in the same place you live. It's horrible. I think there are about 3 to 4 areas that I've visited just around my area, and you see the way things are littered. The worst of them all is diapers. Those stuffs do not decompose. So I do not even know how such is created and then it does not decompose. It only means that those who created think of a way on how to manage it, which I think one of the best ways is recycling. Because some things like that, because we have once been in a place where we tried to burn and it's not burned completely. It means it cannot even be burnt. It means it's a situation where it has to be treated differently. One of the reasons why we are having the worst scenarios of waste is because we dump everything together. We take plastics, we mix with vegetables, we mix with containers, we mix with plastics. We just put all the chunk together and we aim on one place. The same place we eat, the same place we sleep, the same place we walk. It's sad. And the funny part about it is that when you want to talk about the waste, the first thing that goes in ISACAM is not doing their job. When you talk about ISACAM, the next person will say the government is not paying ISACAM. When you go to the government will say they are disbursing money, but it's not managed properly. So finally, when you blame this person, the other person blames the other person, the other person blames the other person. So finally, it's a circle. I blame you, you blame me, and it all goes round. But the truth about the matter is, we should leave aside the government and the companies, or the company, which is known, and we should see how we can solve our problem. I think that's the best scenario, because we are facing the heat of the problem that is coming. There are so many illnesses that are generated from waste being dumped beside the house. I can remember, I think it's some 7 years back, if I'm not making a mistake, when this crisis was at its heated point. There is I think they go towards the Ikuna areas where the landfill is there for deposition of dirt. It's a sad scenario. They could not go there because they were always ambushed on their way there. So they got a place, I think, up towards the mountain. I think after Bonakanda village, I think 3 villages counting from the central market, up there, and they were, I think, the forest, they were dumping dirt. And I went there, I think I had the opportunity of going there once, but the kind of fly I saw roving around where people were drinking, it's a pathetic story. No, these are flies you see only in tropical regions, those interior forests, those flies that are bigger 4 times more than the ones you see on a daily basis that you just make fresh fish and they are just boozing around. The flies I saw there was different, and I was confused. I asked, like, is it that this area has different kinds of flies compared to the areas down there? They are like, one person responded to me that the depot of ISACAM is up this way, and I was like, how can a depot be close to where people reside? It means the health conditions of the person are not taken into preoccupation. They just want to deposit dirt, and they do it. There are times in which they will just pass. I was confused at the time. When I always saw the car coming down, I thought that's when I'll come outside to maybe put my dirt. But the funny part is, I did not know that it's when they are climbing up. That's where you're supposed to bring your dirt. Coming down, they are leaving. It means they are from deposit. That was where I tried to understand that this was a scenario that was happening. They did not have the opportunity to do it where they were doing it because of the security challenges we were facing. But they were doing it somewhere else that is even worse, because it was in between where people lived. Children. There are diseases that I think have even come into play because of that we don't know. Because from every careless activity as humans that we do on a daily basis, it brings up illnesses. Illnesses did not just come from space. It came from something. And I believe one of the something is the way we handle our activities, the way we handle the things we use. So if we are looking at this particular aspect of waste management, I just want to say that it is our social responsibility to keep our environment clean. Obviously, we are going to blame parties, yes. We put them there for them to see our interests being fulfilled. The interest of the people comes first above everything else. You are there to serve. That's the work of a leader. So you have your own responsibilities. But just if that leader fails, you're not going to sit and say, okay, my leader has failed, so I should also sit since he's sitting, you have to take up the mantle and see what you can do for yourself. Because presently, with the issue we are having on waste management, it's now on a personal level. Because there is no one you can turn to. When you turn to A says you turn to B. When you turn to B says you turn to C. So it's a whole circle on its own.
But the people still do pay sanitation tax. I think there is something we have to establish. He said he gives the government, I think that if I'm 10%,
yeah.
You talk about 2%. Now I want us to look at it from the point of what we call laws in the country. Because when you go by the laws of the country in the first place, you will understand that there is a chain of management with regards to this. Now, like I established, the first problem is we contracted a company that does not recycle waste. And we do not have companies in Cameroon that do recycle the waste we generate. And I said, most of the waste we have are imported waste, in the sense that what is left as waste are mostly things that we imported. It's unfortunate that in this process, you do not put certain conditions. Now, if you go to countries like Britain, if you go to countries like France, if you move to the United States and others, especially in the West, there is a way they manage their waste. The first thing is that the company that comes in to manage waste, they do what we call waste segregation. You have to divide the waste. You separate the waste. What is chemical waste? Because they have their effects to the environment. What is chemical waste? What is the consequence of plastic waste? How do you manage waste food? Now, yes, of course, one of the major causes of the smell we get, that stinking aroma that comes from it, so to say, is as a result of the fact that when plastics are mixed up with waste that can decompose, when they get decomposed, they cannot go into the ground. So they stay on the surface as a result of the plastics that we mix them all together. And how do you manage this? For example, if you come to Cameroon, Cameroon is also becoming one of the countries that have said, okay, we want to see the environment safe. We want to keep the environment the way it should be kept. As such, we have resorted that we are going to, we even receive funds to keep certain forests. We receive funds to keep certain natural habitat the way they are, because we want these things to be the way they have to be. If you go to a country like Gabon, I think the Netherlands a few years ago gave Gabon about 35 million US dollars. I think 35 billion US dollars to contain their forest. Billions, yes. To keep their forest. It should not be exploited. For what? Issues of climate change, to absorb the CO2 that leaves, resulting from what? The burning of some of these things. So our government is part of those who have said, okay, we should not burn. We should not burn. These are the ironies. Now, for example, if we were to go based on the law and the things that we have in place, under normal circumstances, if you burn certain things, it means you have actually signed that you will not do these things. You are contravening. And how do you manage that? That is a problem. But that's a greater worry to all. But the most pressing worry is that if we succeed to have companies, and with these companies, we should be able, if you go to the landfill in Musaka there, towards Moya, towards Kumba, now a lot could be gotten out from that particular area. The cooking gas we use in the house could be, they could harness it from there. So you realize that we should rather be going in for people who should be able to manage the waste in the process. Now, like Pa was saying, I can vividly recall in the 80s, the way we manage waste, because I'm privileged to have lived in the 80s, where I was capable to see things that are happening reasonably. What we did, there was a pit system, given that imported plastics were not an issue yet, because the major problem we have is that we have imported plastics. And these plastics, which do not decompose, are a greater problem to us than the waste we may want to think. You have bottles, you have other canned drinks. How do you manage them? These are some of the things we have to consider. For example, in the past, like I can vividly remember, we had a pit around our house. Now, this pit was meant for anything food. We dumped it there. You dump it there, after a while, you go back, pick it. It was used as manure, which was the natural manure, unlike the imported or the synthetic manure that we now have today. So that is how we used some of this waste, given that little plastics were generated. So you could not even have problems of plastics. But today, with the growing towns and cities, a single company alone cannot actually keep the environment clean. And this is where we say it is the issue of policy. I do not make policy. I don't make policy. You don't make policy. He doesn't make policy. We are a people who have elected a people, and those who represent us. That is why it became a very serious issue. For the first time in Cameroon, you will hear that the Prime Minister called a meeting calling on ministers. He did not call for the Minister of Environment only. He called for ministers, that we should sit and see what is happening. Why is Yaoundé this dirty? And why is Cameroon getting dirty? Because Yaoundé already, it's like, you know, when water is actually filling you up, and this is the head, which is Yaoundé. Water has filled every other region until you got to the head. And that is when the head now saw that, okay, my eyes and my mouth need to speak out for someone to come and help me out. And that is why the Prime Minister said, okay, we are going to call for this meeting. And in this meeting, we are going to discuss how do we manage waste. And the first thing we can do is we should think about recycling of our waste. We should think about the contracting of companies that should come in to manage waste. Because let's be factual. Look at the case of Moya. I think in the video that was on the screen, if you go to that particular area around Mount Kame, we had changed the name of that area to be Mount Heap of Death. The name of that area was actually nicknamed the Heap of Death in Boya because it was at its peak. And as I speak, the standing water we see on that video is still lying there right now. Meaning after they removed some of the waste, they still did not think about that, because a poor drainage system generates a lot of waste that comes as a result of that. Yes.
Yeah, I think if we want to help the public, let us try to distinguish between disposal and management.
Yeah.
I think I will place more emphasis on disposal rather than on the management of the waste. Why do I place it? Because I want it to be known that the dirt is where it is because somebody dumped it there.
Of course,
Yeah. ISACAM is disposing waste but not managing it. We are also disposing our waste from our houses but not managing it.
That we are managing from
Yes,
the house
yes. So
to carry it to
no, that's you're disposing. You just carry it and dump it in public. You dump it in waterways. My house is near the water, near the stream. They call Ndongo. If you get there and see what they dump there, you will never eat fish, from paint to excreta. In fact, I was there this afternoon in the garden, and some young girl about 19 years, I suspect it's from the University of Boya, I'm sorry to say that. She came there looking for a place to, what word do I use? To defecate. And I said, don't do it. She said, Pa, what do you want me to do? I said, go and do it in the school field. Yes. So in the long run, my dear brother, it is us. If we keep on waiting that the government is going to manage the debt for us. Take the question of saying burning debt. A Pajero, how many liters of fuel does it use to run 3 kilometers? It uses maybe every 4 kilometers it uses 1 liter of fuel, which may be about 600 grams, 0.6 kilograms. Do you imagine how much carbon dioxide is sending to the air? Then I pick a few plastics and burn it in my kitchen or burn it around my house. You say waste disposal. How much carbon dioxide is that plastic generating? A trailer that runs on 3 kilometers of now it takes 1 liter and covers 3 kilometers. To leave from Limbe to Douala, it will burn 27 kilometers of fuel. How much carbon dioxide is it using that you will say people shouldn't burn? Maybe this is where I should blame the government. Anybody who passes a policy that we shouldn't burn. Yeah, there are many other ways that the atmosphere is contaminated by the rich people than the poor people. So permit us, if I have to say permit us burn the plastics. We are not doing any damage to the atmosphere as much as those who enter aeroplanes and burn and produce carbon dioxide in the air they do. Coming back to back to us, because I keep on insisting, and I'll keep to insist that it is us who damage our environment. Let us first of all start by seeing how we dispose of our waste. That we don't dispose it, I think you're the one who said it, that you see sewage. People build houses, direct their sewage from their house onto the road. The government, the Prime Minister is one man out of the 28 million Cameroonians that are there. The government, they say that the civil service is large, because when we say government, we're talking about the civil service. Let's say it's 1 million people. Are they up to? I'm not sure. If we say 500,000, you're talking about less than 2% of the people trying to control the activities of 98% of the people. It doesn't, I don't see how we can leave ourselves out without criticizing it. Let us keep our environment clean. Let us do as it was in the past. Let it be a taboo for people to go doing their shitting thing in the stream. Let it be a taboo for people to go throwing diapers. It's the most horrible thing I've seen all over the place. That they dump it everywhere. Let it be. We used to believe that if you dump your personal goods in the water, Mami water will come. I don't know whether we shouldn't go. We shouldn't go telling people, even in churches, in country meeting, that when you dump those things in public, somebody will come and take it and go and make juju with it.
At one point, I even said, I think when I was about 12 years, I went to a barbing studio and I told the guy after I was shaving my hair, give my hair. Yeah. Because I understood that they were done in the stream.
Yeah, whether we believe it or not, people have gone around looking for people's pieces of clothing to go and do juju with it. So let this be emphasized. Even if you say it's primitive, okay, let us be primitive. I tell people that juju will catch you when you do those things. My dear, let the public know that we are responsible for it. What is democracy? Repeat it, let me not be the one. By the people. Yeah. So if the government is there, it is our government. It has been placed there by us. So why can't we make it work? We should be able to make it work.
Yeah, but there is a policy, because I am saying this, we are being comparative here.
Yes.
We cannot rule out that. Now, let's assume that we say we do not have ISACAM. I think we would have managed our ways in that light.
I'm talking about disposal.
I'm coming,
yeah.
Because there is another aspect. It does not involve only the recycling part of the waste management.
Yes.
Now, firstly, to manage your waste, you have to understand which waste should not be where. And how do you do about that which should be where you see it to be. Now, this is the situation we have. We have ISACAM who have said, now the government says, okay, you are going to pay sanitation tax. And this sanitation tax is, we are going to collect this money to contract someone to clean the place for us. Yeah. And you are paying that tax.
They are paying at what level?
They pay that tax from the council perspective. Everybody pays it. It is indexed.
Even the call box people.
The call box people pay it. People pay sanitation tax. Every business person pays. You pay sanitation tax. So in principle, that person who pays that tax is paying you
to do the work.
To do the work for him. So you can't turn around to tell that person that you should be the one doing it. Else you wouldn't be collecting that. That's one. Two, when you look at this, we have contracted companies to manage this. These companies are short of cans. If you look at the positioning of these companies, if you see the case of Moya around that area, firstly, which we are using as a case study, you will notice that there you have a single can. Now, how can a single can contain an area of not less than 20,000 people? How is that feasible?
With a very serious market.
With a very serious, with an area where the people import, we consume about 80 to 90%.
Private education office.
That's right, sir.
I took a picture of it.
Thank you.
I can go back to it. I'll show you. It's
Thank
horrible.
You. You see, it's
horrible.
Whereas we have paid these people. Now, this is the person we have given this contract to. So what should be his job? Now, it suffices at this hour. Yes, some of us, because when we talk about burning this, environmentalists and also proponents of now we should protect the planet, now we should not ensure that we should do this. They too will come out to say, okay, you are destroying. How do you manage that? But if we were to put these guys away, or let's assume that we have kept these guys away from us, now we are talking about the disposal or the management aspect of it. We have to increase the number of cans in some areas. In some areas, you have singular can. How do these people dispose this waste?
Okay. where I live,
Yes.
there's no landlord that has a single can in front of his house. So where do you want
That should be a
the
case
yeah. So where do you want the tenant to put his debt? A landlord builds on the what do you call pillar
Pillar
Ba-
to pillar,
Yeah.
boundary to boundary.
boundary to be. There's no place where the poor. I'm in favor of the
The man they often call as the common man. The
yeah,
poor
nah.
man.
There's no place where the guy would dump his debt. He doesn't have a place to dispose of it. So what do you want, if you're talking about government at that level, why don't you come to the government at the level where we are? And the government at the level we are is the individual landlord who has to provide opportunities, facilities for his tenants to dump debt. You build a house, pillar to pillar, there's no more garden.
There's no more backyard.
Yeah, there's no more backyard. So at night, if you have a small place in your own way you have not built because
the other will come, the tenants will come and dump.
it there while you are sleeping, they'll come and dump it there. So
Okay, let's even take a scenario of Boya at the moment,
yeah.
where it's very populated. There is limited space. Let me say there's limited green space at the moment.
Yeah.
For a landlord who has a city
Yes.
and another has the next. So if you were to put a can for dirt, where will you put it?
Well, this is the question I'm asking. Yes.
That's where the problem is. Okay, we are looking at the possibility of segregating our waste,
Yes.
so that it can be properly managed
That's right.
in the way, because now we're talking about waste disposal, how to dispose it carelessly.
Yeah.
So if we want to educate the public, we're looking at the ways in which they'll be able to better manage it.
That's right.
Environmentalists will say we should not burn, but the situation we are facing now, we have to burn those plastics that cannot decompose. So for those that can, where do we throw them?
That's another question.
This is now the problem that we have. So we'll always have to try as much as possible, even if we want to say it is our responsibility, to fall a little back to the administrators to see how they can come in to solve a little problem. Because if we are segregating the waste, they have places in which they need to go to. We need to burn.
Madam,
We need, and there's another aspect of reusing those wastes.
yeah,
that we are making.
these are things for private companies. The government cannot go creating a company. I mean, what is private sector? What is the private sector? What does it mean? I worked in the private sector. I worked in the CDC, and I worked principally in the rubber plantation. And everything that we produce had a use. From the tree, the rubber tree, which you turn into firewood, to the tapping, which you tap, then you collect the liquid part, is latex. There is the solid part, which is they call it coblum. It has its function. The CDC would do that. Then there's the ground scrap, which falls on the ground, and then they pick it, wash it. Private individuals were supposed to take those things and convert it into finished product. They were not doing it, at least at the time I was there. Who were doing it? Nigerians were coming here and buying that ground scraps. What do Cameroonians do with the tree lace? You know what I mean by tree lace? That thing you use in making your fire. I know you've used it. Yeah. We have all used it. Yeah, that's very good rubber. Where Nigerians come and buy it, we use it here to burn, to make fire. So let us insist that the private sector in Cameroon should wake up, rather than expecting the government to create to create companies that will do that. If they do in America, that you are saying in the European countries, those companies are private. People look for opportunities to make their money. Let Cameroonians, especially young Cameroonians, look for opportunities to make their money by managing the waste that we have allowed our landlords to contribute towards because I would always go back to say, if you have built your house and you haven't provided provision for waste disposal, you are talking about one can that they put 3 different wastes. You're talking about the plastic waste, which is serious. I think the least plastic will take about, if it's thick enough, it will take about 50 years to decompose. Maybe the light one can take the black ones can take a few months to decompose. Then there's no place to even keep the combined. Then you're looking for three place for 3 cans.
It's all right. Thank you very much, Daddy. For me, we'll be coming back to that after looking at You know, these are, I would say, maybe the hustles and the difficulties in managing waste or waste disposals and the rest. All of us, it's no news to us that it's not just a cry of Yaoundé, but everywhere, all the regions, like Mr. Luke said at the beginning, it is at the apex. Someone will say that, and that is why we could easily see the Prime Minister calling ministers, not just one, ministers, to put their heads together to see how both issue could be managed and management of garbage also should be managed. And we'll go straight away to look at, to begin this time around, Mr. Lucas, what the effects of these poor waste management, especially in the southwest region where we find ourselves.
The effects are very simple, bro. If you look at our situation, have you noticed that we have a lot of persons running to our hospitals these days? I think you should take the data of persons who rush to our hospitals these days living around Boya. You will notice that malaria is the highest. Have you noticed that we now have a quite recurrent cases of cholera? They are the highest. These are the immediate causes of poor waste management or poor waste disposal. And who is responsible? I cannot conclude on who is responsible, leaving aside the individual. Now, this is a responsibility of the individual, because I've been in some cases where someone sees a can, comes there to dump dirt, dumps it on the ground, and it became an issue. I watched the video, and when I went to Yaoundé, I got that area. When I went to Yaoundé, and it was confirmed that a young lady left the house, haven't fixed what is known as Njamanjama, brought the waste of the huckleberry, dumped it by the side of the can. And some young guys stood there. They compelled her to pick it and dump it in that can. And she did that. She did that. So this is where I say we are also taking part in some cases where you see a can and you choose not to dump your dirt in that, inside that particular can. So we have several things that will come from certain poor waste management. And the bottom line is that, or poor waste disposal, you know, Pa emphasizes that we should look so much on the aspect of the disposal part than the management part of it. But this is what is actually happening. The major problem is the health personnel have not also made this to be a dire situation. Why am I saying so? We want to see them giving us data publicly on the number of persons from certain areas as a result of this. Because it is very important. You know, whenever they say there is cholera, or whenever there is cholera, let me put it this way. Whenever there is cholera outbreak by health personnel, administrative officials, they'll rush to that scene immediately. I remember the case of my 16, when it was said that my 16 was suffering from, there was cholera outbreak in my 16. They came to that area, sealed the water source of that area. And this is where we say, the government. I know that whenever we make mention of the government, some people think that certain persons are left aside. The definition of government by the people, for the people, and for all or not, please, that definition is the people who are represented by their parliamentarians, not you and I. Not you and I.
How did the parliamentarians get there?
We have put them there. But where they are not doing their job, we have the right to call them. To imagine that with this issue of poor waste management in Cameroon, we have not heard it. It has not made any sense in the mind of the parliament. So whenever there is an outbreak of cholera, they'll rush to that area, seal certain places, deprive the people from burying their disease or their...
While you are still there, let me add something. Have you ever heard that minister had cholera? Or the governor, or the DO? They don't have, so it's not their problem yet. Maybe I'm being callous. So it is your problem and
so
my problem. So at the end
of the day, given that they already know that they will not have this,
yes, so it's your
they have decided to mismanage the situation on the ground, because that's basically
no, that's not what I'm saying.
They are the ones enforcing it. Now you talked about just a few people, not up to 1 million, in control.
Yes.
Now, can you and I command the police? Who commands the police?
It's a Cameroonian.
No, not a Cameroonian, but not you and I.
Yeah, for sure.
The person who enforces that particular law is not you and I.
Yes.
The judiciary is not you and I.
I agree.
That's it.
Yes.
So no matter how you think that I am part of this, there is a person whom, through the laws and the constitution in place, we have delegated power. Okay. And we have said, you are the ones to manage this.
It's not a one-on-one, I'm sure, but I'm saying that we are helping society to understand it. Yes, it's not a one-on-one. It's not you versus me. Yes, the police is there. If I were the Prime Minister, I would send the police to go around trashing people who throw dirt anywhere randomly.
And you will do nothing for the companies that stay for months?
No, I will first start by trashing the man who dumps his dirt somewhere.
Okay.
I will have him punished by the police. If the police go there and decide to take their choco and leave, that will be the man.
So what do you do for the person who doesn't come to carry the debt, like we have the case of Moyan?
No, that doesn't mean that I'm going to let him go free. That's not what I'm saying.
No, I'm looking at your starting point.
Yeah, I'll start from the man, then I'll also trash the Isakam. If you're not doing it, you should be trashed. That's what we should be blaming.
Because they are paid for.
Yeah, they're paid for. That's what we should be blaming the government for. But there are you've brought me back to these 27 million people who cannot take care of themselves, and they want a man who doesn't suffer from cholera, a man who drinks tangi. In fact, he may not, he prefers Supermont to tangi. That's if you bring Supermont to him and tangi, he will select the two to drink. Then me and you have to go to Ndongo water and carry water and drink. So leave that man aside and clean your environment.
Thank you very much,
No
Yes,
no matter how you clean it, there is a place set to be a place to dispose.
Yeah.
Now, do you know when the sanitation workers of the company, when they go out and they notice that there is a heap of dirt behind your house, you are likely to pay a fine?
Oh yes.
They pay.
Now,
I think I can add on that point.
Yeah.
Presently in my community, the traditional ruler has taken upon himself to see that the village is cleaned. Okay, so there is an amount I think they collect if they meet dirt beside your house. It doesn't matter how small that dirt is. So when they were going around to survey the area, they came to my house. My mom, I think she had cleaned. We have cleaned everywhere, and this is mostly grass, we took and we put in our farm because we have a green space behind the house. And then the next building after ours behind, I think the young man sells petrol, so his containers were littered at the door. I think about 6 containers were there, and they asked him to pay 50,000 francs. So I asked them that, what are you going to do with the 50,000 francs that you are collecting from him for 5 containers that he kept at the door of the place he keeps his petrol? And they were like, it's because he has violated the law. They want to say they can clean the community and everything. So I said, in this community, people clean the space for free. There is nobody that is paid to clean this space. There is what you call general community cleaning, where everybody comes out and you clean your front.
Like we did that
back.
today in my 16.
That's
we
what
actually
you do.
did that today in my 16.
But now, nobody pays. You don't pay them for those services. I can say, okay, I'll clean my own tomorrow, I'll not clean today. But when it is announced, everybody come and do it. So now 5 containers, and he sells petrol, so he keeps them there and he comes out. So it was outside, and they had checked everywhere, they did not see. It's like they were looking for where to see them.
That's right.
Okay, so when they make the thing, you pay 50,000. So I asked the man, okay, what is he paying 50,000 francs for? Because his containers, he can just pick it up with his hands and everything is solved. So what is he paying 50,000 francs for? For you to take and add it to the treasury, or for you to take to see how you can institute cans in this village? Because there are people here who are barely renting for the houses that we bought. They don't have a green space like some of us who are indigents of this community that we can throw behind our house, because we have green spaces that we have kept for things that can get rotten. We have vegetables and the rest. We put them on furrows where we want to plant vegetables, and it gets rotten there. It even makes the soil more fertile for us to plant. And for the plastics, people have even dug holes behind their house. People have dug, when they put it inside, they burn. Yeah, and then when the soil, I think there's some soil after a period of time, they remove and then they put it under their plantains. I think it serves as manure for the plantains. So now
the plastics evaporate, all of it evaporates when you burn it.
But I think they put the plastic and some other things that they burn together. Yes. So that's it. So when I asked him, he was like, it's because he deposited it wrongly. I told him that this one is a different scenario. Places have been cleaned by people who were not paid. And you want to come and collect 50,000 from a young man who's trying to make money. So typically we are trying to cause problems where there is no problem. Because I think what you should do with him is that you should tell him clearly that these containers are not where they are supposed to be, because containers do not decompose. You are already sending a lot of dirt to the side, so arrange it. For what I saw, the young man was practically a target because he sells petrol in front of the house. But it's like an eye-opener. I saw it like a good initiative that the communities want to see how to clean the place, because they have seen that if there is no Isakam to come and do it. There is, I think, some 2 years back, I did a documentary on waste disposal and waste management. And when I was trying to take a video, there was this kid, he was carrying, I think, plantain peelings. I think up around Bundumaba, Bekoko or something. He was carrying plantain peelings. And something told me to follow this young man as he was going. He's very short. So he was carrying on his head, he was in a bowl. He was going, and I was following him. Something like, just put your camera on. And on a very clean surface, that child dumped that plantains, and I screamed. I'm like, what have you done? There was no can there. The can had just been recently removed, I think the day before, and the place was cleaned. There was no can there, so he dumped it on the floor. The first thing that came to mind was that the way we manage waste is how our children see to manage waste. So it's a continuous process.
It's a chain kind of stuff.
That child was practically taught that if you did not see
By,
a can,
taught by
the parents were going back to the family. Like I said, it's our responsibility.
Yeah.
okay.
If that child was taught that if you go there and you don't meet the can, bring back the plantains.
Now let me come in. Now, how do you when you
That's the first
when
scenario.
you bring the debt back to the house, in a case where you had said you are renting somewhere, you do not have any extra land on that in that area to dump that debt, where do you keep it?
Mr.
in the
Lucas,
house?
that's the first scenario.
Dump it at the caretaker's door.
Really?
Yeah, dump it there. You don't go and dump it in the public place. Dump it at the caretaker's door.
That's the first scenario.
Yeah.
The second is, where is the waste bin deposit? Because I think that waste bin was collected some 24 hours ago. So now, some of this waste we meet at the road are deposited by those those children, because if you see, those elderly people don't come to deposit those waste.
Some do at night.
Some do at night.
Yes.
But
They're nocturnal.
during the
quite
day.
often they do
They
at night.
send the children because they know people will not attack
The
them.
children, yeah.
They will just dump and they will go. That's what happens. They dump and go. They dump and go. So we are raising a generation of children who continue dumping debt on the road,
The
dumping
cycle
debt on the road,
continues.
and the debt continues. So it's even far beyond telling people that take your social responsibility. You even take a social responsibility to the extent of being educating the younger ones, so educating them via examples.
Yeah, I think.
And I will not really blame them too much, because some of these waste bins take about 1 week to come back. So with somebody who rents and you have accumulated debt, for some they have
You
their
keep
bags
them.
and
Where
they
do
keep
you
and they
keep
keep and they
them?
keep and
That's
they
the
keep.
question.
So when the day that it comes, they just decide to go in the night and then they just dump at the roadside.
That's the way. I'm not cutting you short. That's when you can blame the government.
Yeah.
Who gave authority?
For people to keep their
Yeah, to build the houses the way they have built it. So that is where you can blame the government for authorizing the unauthorizable. I mean, you know more about these laws than me. I don't.
It's all right. That's why I'm sure
Yeah.
the prime minister did not, joke with that. He called all those persons about development, public works, decentralization, as well as mayors and all those persons concerned with development and the rest in the country. So all of them are involved in one or the other. But are they doing their job? That's that. They're doing their job. We found ourselves in this. We call it maybe saga. I don't know how to put it. Something which is not so friendly, which is not good. Because there's still a continuation of those distribution of mosquito nets fighting against malaria, whereas the real thing itself is not the mosquito nets will not really help us 100%, because by the houses of those persons, the homes that have given them the mosquito nets by WHO and some other kind of persons, there are heaps of garbage just littered there and water, standing water. And how do you expect malaria to go away?
When you look at the call of the prime minister, he did not call the person you're thinking. He called the person who is charged with that.
Yeah.
That Mr. Mayor, we have given you this. The people have given you the mandate. You were elected. There is provision for this. How you managing it? Now, the spot, like I said, the first problem is the monopoly of waste management company in Cameroon. If we had a multiplicity of these guys, we would have solved this problem easily. Because look at the situation. A can is kept here, it is removed. It takes about 2 weeks or more for it to return. The people generate waste every single day. Where do they take it to? How do you manage it? We assume that these persons had the authorization to build and they have a space behind their house. How do you go about dumping it? How many days does it take to decompose likewise? Because as much as we talk about the way it was managed in the yesteryears, where we dug a pit, you dump it there. Now, how many days does it take to decompose? Because the smell that comes from it also, it affects the people. So you realize that this is where the state says, okay, the public health department of the country says, we are managing the situation. And to manage it, we have to educate the people. No matter how you educate the people, I have always said it. If I should tell my child not to go to my neighbor's house and watch TV when I don't have any at home, he has no blame because he needs pleasure. He needs to be informed. It is his right. I tell my children daily, there are things I do for you not because I love you, I do them because it's your right. So if you remove love, I must do them. And if I fail to do them, hold me responsible. I tell them daily. So this is where we find ourselves. The government of Cameroon, especially the executive branch, because they control all. The executive branch has a greater power in terms of policy making and decision to the judiciary, to the legislative. So when you look at this, they are in charge, and that is why it is the executive arm that had to place that call through the prime minister. That, okay, we are going to have a call right now. We need to know what we need to do. You, the mayor in Singa, this is what you're going to do. You have to ensure that the counts which are not there, you need to triple it. So I think that
this is where I don't know. I didn't hear the prime minister, and I'm sure he has said.
Yes, this was also over Cameroon calling. I'm sure on Sunday. This meeting took place on Thursday, the 26th.
Is he sure that he pays Isakam?
That's a good question.
I wish I had the opportunity to ask him, Mr. Prime Minister. Perhaps he's listening. Are you sure that you paid Isakam to do the job they are supposed to do? Have you given to the mayor the money, the budget,
head or
whatever? Yeah, have you given him? Have you ensured that he has the money to do that and he has not done it? If you have ensured that the money has been transferred to the mayor, if he has not used it, investigate him for chopping government money that has been given for him for Isakam to clean. I tell you a story. We went to Isakam because my quarter is one of those sorry places to stay. To get there, it got blocked. Isakam came the other day. And
they have another road this time around because there's waste damage.
Where we had done it. Then he didn't even know that there was a water pipe. They didn't know that, and in trying to clear the dirt, they cleared the dirt, but they punctured the water type that takes water to the university. You can imagine a punctured pipe carrying water to the university.
What would have happened?
Then, no, punctured where dirt is, it's on top of it. Yeah. And that tap pipe is generally never 100% full with water, because if it's full with water, it will mean that dirt will not go in. Can you imagine how much dirt is getting into that pipe and going to the university? So the situation is much more chaotic than we think. I appeal to the Prime Minister or those who may be watching this that he should make sure that the mayor has the money that is allocated for him for sanitation, and if the money has been allocated physically, let him find out whether it has been given to Isakam and Isakam is not doing his job. Then let the person who has taken the money and not done it be penalized. That would be what I think is the best thing to do. But all in all, I'm still saying that the long and the short of it is us. How we dispose our waste. Where do we keep it? You see a man, we may be a little bit more careful, peeing all over the place. That's still waste disposal. They go around.
Of course, there is still responsibility. We have been told, you go to some places, right? They'll tell you that you should not pee here. Do you know what? It is my right
to pee where, like?
It is my right for you to. Now, health, I have a health right.
Yeah.
And if you say I shouldn't pee here,
Provide me a toilet.
you have to provide a toilet.
Correct. That's true.
So when it is not provided, you have yourself to
move to next door Calabar if you want to see the difference between two communities. Move to next door Calabar, and you will see nearly a perfect clean town. From Calabar, move to Aba, and you see a perfectly dirty town. So maybe I agree with you that those at the top will determine what happens at the bottom. Because if you go to Calabar and you are found dumping a piece of paper on the road, you pay 50 naira. At that time, 50 naira was a lot of money. Now it's around 50 naira is not up to 60 francs. But by Nigerian standards, it's a lot of money. 50 naira used to be the salary of a 4 civil servants in Nigeria. But if you dump that there, you pay for it, whether you are it doesn't matter your level in society. Let us institute it here that if a man is found, whether you have made provision for his dumping dirt near him or away from him, if he finds it, let him be sanctioned with money that gets to the treasury, so that you can use that money to pay the people cleaning it.
If you go to some areas where Hisakam would dump dirt or place their can in Boya, you will notice that some persons have, I know this is the same thing that happens in places like Kumba, Manfe, Limbe, Mutengene, Tiko, because Muyuka, these are all places where we have Hisakam. If you go to Bangem, you go to Tombe, we have the same companies there. They are in charge to clean our towns and cities. All of the towns in Cameroon, you have Hisakam. You are expected to see Hisakam. Now, this is what we have to note. It is not in putting punitive sanctions. It is about making provisions. You go to some of these places, you see a signpost. If you are caught dumping here, you pay 25,000, pay 50,000. Yeah. You look around that area, 1 kilometer from that same area, you will not see any can. And you come back and ask yourself, where do you want me to dump it? I have a similar case I saw somewhere around Boya, I'll not mention. And a few hours later, when I was returning, I saw a heap of dirt in that area. Because the people have kept the waste in their house. Probably thought of, what is 50,000 francs or 25,000 francs to spend in a hospital compared to, or to pay as fine, compared to 200,000 francs of a health hazard that I would have suffered to pay to a hospital management team. So we have to make provisions. I think the bottom line is, the point I'm making is this: we have to make provisions. The government, whom we have given the responsibility, and this is where I applaud so much the Western government, because we are trying to emulate what they are doing, and we have to do it the way it is done. They make provisions, and they make the punitive laws. They make the laws now to penalize you. You cannot tell me not to dump dirt where you think is wrong without providing me the alternative to do away with my waste. Else, you'll be in trouble. But this is what we have here. This is what we have here, basically. Hisakam comes, and sometimes also the guys of Hisakam, when they come, they think they are being benevolent to the people. I am trained to ensure that you will receive what you receive with regards to the agreement we have. Should not see yourself as being benevolent to me. Because it is this mentality that has kept us bound. Lucky Ju once said, he knows that he pays his bodyguard because he got him. They asked a question. The tax collector, what does he do with that which he collects from him? That was a question he asked. Because we have tax that we do collect, and they are not used in accordance with the reason why they get the tax for. So this is where we have a problem. Our problem is not that the man around us would like to eat dirt. Look at some of these girls who now use diapers. Look at what happens. Okay, let's assume we know that it doesn't decompose, like you said. You even try burning, it could not really go that way.
It's so damp that when you try burning it, you spend all the fuel evaporating the water from the diapers before you spend another fuel to burn it.
Okay, who had that policy that we should import diapers? At the time you began giving birth to children, you probably did not have diapers. You used napkins that were washed. They were recycled.
Correct.
I did so. I can remember I used that for my first child. I think it should be my last child.
Yeah, we have been looking at this critical topic, something which concerns all of us. Like we said at the beginning, poor waste management in Cameroon, but in the southwest region in particular, we have the blames on almost everybody. Everybody is concerned. Like we know time is not really our friend. But then we need to see what can be done. What can be done. I'm sure in Papa's days they have this team that moves around. They call them is it sanitary or some kind of persons, yeah. And those kind of persons, we knew that they were so, they were strict and they were there to do their job, and places were clean. And cleanliness is next to godliness. That is just the normal thing. What we have to tell these people, for example, you go before you get to John Chi, you see piles of but then clean it. As you're going this way around Late Mama Lifaka, the area there, the road going down there is almost blocked with, and that person staying there. You go to Munya, it's almost the same thing. You find yourself along the roadside, you see everywhere is littered with. What are we expected to do? Let's just close our eyes to say, the SACAM is not there. The council is not there. They are doing some other things. What do we do? Are we going to abandon those things there and we find ourselves going to the hospital every day? What do you tell the people of Boya, beginning from my 16, my 14, everywhere? There is no town that is free from it. What are they expected to do?
Well, I take it down first. I know there's no time. First to the classrooms. Yeah. Let the teachers tell the children not to dump dirt randomly. Yeah.
Sorry to cut you short. I'm sure Madam Njema was there some years back in University of Boya. There's some students, we had problems with them even because they dumped papers, littered papers, and when we ask that I wait to be that mommy their own work, there are some persons. So So yes, just
let's get to the primary school and tell the children don't dump that randomly. Teach them how to clean their classrooms and then how to keep their dirt together. Then at that time we'll know where ISACAM is going wrong. Yeah. You say the government, we are the government. I also want to tell the mayor who represents us that is clean up campaign that he does every day is not being done. People just lock their stores and go to do something else. They don't do it. Let it be enforced that you go around and ask people to clean. Perhaps when they go around and ask people to clean and keep the environment clean, they will learn the people's problem, which tends to be ISACAM's, that in the long run, ISACAM has not picked what they done. Then finally, I still insist that, like I think it's Thomas Edison, an American inventor, he said that success is 10% inspiration and 90% perspiration. We as citizens, we have to perspire, we have to work in order to get what we want. Jimmy Cliff says, use what you've got to get what you need. So we must not fold our hands and wait for the government to do all those things. Yes, let us assume, as it was in the beginning, that there was no ISACAM. Let us assume that there was no mayor. In the village, when we go, like Madam said here, it was the traditional council who went around cleaning, not so. In my part of the country, the chief senses the Chinda to go and make sure that people keep the village clean. Let us come down to the level and to the level where we are and keep our environment clean. Let's not wait for somebody to clean it for us. I don't wait for my wife to clean my toothpaste for me because it's my most personal thing. I clean it. You don't wait. There are certain things that you have to do it for yourself. I'm not saying that the government is redundant or that they have nothing to do. They have the responsibility to collect, to do a collective work and finish what we start at the level. So Mayor, please check on, I think it's the first and third Wednesdays of the month. The people cleaning it, no, they are not. They just go around, close their shops, and do other things, cleaning. So it is in the idea of the people. We say in the Catholic Church that the best form of government is to go down as low as possible. Subsidiarity. To
be a servant or maybe to be a leader, you need to be down there as a servant.
To the level, and let's not say that because the big man, I said it, that because the big man does not have cholera, I should leave my cholera case to him. If I get cholera, I'll pay for it when I go to the hospital. When he goes, he doesn't pay. So at that level, let us work in such a way that we don't spend the useful money we have to pay school fees by going to hospital. Because as he rightly said, the amount of mosquitoes that are all over, the amount of flies that are all over is because, you know, since we came from the village, a man doesn't understand why he shouldn't be keeping fowls around his house. And what do the fowls do? They go pooing all over the place. The flies now come to eat the, let me use the word, shit. They come to eat the shit. From the shit, they fly into our houses and contaminate whatever food we have. Let us, at our level, know that what we do not want to be done to us, we shouldn't do it to others.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm sure maybe sometime to come, Mr. Lucas will be looking at that. Maybe environments where people do keep poultry by the neighborhood, you know, disturbing the others around there. We'll be looking at something.
There is a law on that. There is a law on how you have to raise these animals.
Yeah, we'll be checking on that.
Remove them far away from human habitat.
Yeah, I remember those.
All of those things, there is. We have all those things made already.
So we'll be coming to that some other time. Yes, Madam Ejema, what do you have for the denizens of the Southwest region, especially those in Boya, as far as the topic of today's edition is concerned?
Yeah, thank you very much for queuing me in. I think I've said a lot about the aspect of social responsibility and how we should take it up seriously, because at the end of the day, it's our health that is at stake. But the second thing I want to advise, especially the council, given the issues we are facing with the waste disposal and management from the company that is in charge, I would want to urge them that I think they should use the indirect rule system. Since they are the council, they should try as much as possible to liaise with traditional rulers. Because I believe from all of these areas we have...
They have quarter heads, they have the chiefs and the rest, all those persons, yeah?
Of all of these areas. So I think the best way for us to see how we can manage our waste is to come down to see how we can liaise with other local administrators to see how we can keep the areas clean. For some, like in my community, they are already doing their best. And I was speaking with one of the councillors some few days back, and he told me that the chief wants to see an area in the village where they can dig up a hole where they will throw only things that they will be able to burn. While for things that they will not be able to burn, they can see how it can be done on farms of those who are planting or stuff. They want to see how those ones that are just littered around, they want to see how it can be burned. So I don't know, it's a good idea. So I think the council
can take that to the other places. Yes, so you're telling Mr. Lucas, you get your chief in my 16 and I'm sure apart from the persons in charge of Dongo and the other side, they should try to see what to do.
No, we are currently doing it. For example, today in my 16 we had our general cleaning. Yes, and what we did was we have different quarters. The quarter that will emerge the cleanest quarter.
Something for them, a package.
There's always, you have to think about how to always
motivate. Very important.
Yes. So we are already doing that. If you come to particularly my area, if you move around the Quaternary area, that's summarily what we do in our own area. So these are normal things that we have to do. The major thing is the waste you can do away with it, you do with it. The waste that you can. We also generate, how do you manage bottles? Because we have talked about plastic that you burn, you talk about food that will decompose. How do you manage those? We have to look into that. How do you manage that? Someone like me, all broken bottles, when I was laying a certain foundation, I buried them. That's what I did. And many houses are on construction. If you chop them in smaller pieces, you could even make them to powder. You bury them in your foundation. It will help. I did that for mine. Policy behind the doors where people eat fat from it, that you must import those things. What stops us to tell Supermon, be it Tangi, be those who market water in Cameroon, that your plastics, you must set up plants that you use the same plastics here and recycle them to use them. These are policies. These are policies. If you go to look at the political economy and look at the policies that are generated from that perspective, you understand that these guys, they know exactly what they are doing. They are policies. Because someone wants to eat from it, it's like the person producing firearm. He's not producing it that you should go and do poaching in the bush with animals. He's producing it that you should use to kill humans. So that's it. So they have it so much in their minds. So it's about policy. Policymakers are a key in managing everything we do. But like you were asking, we will use the most common means to manage this waste.
Obviously.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, then my last
Time
point
will
on
finish.
what we should do. Okay, I think some of the ministries, like the Ministry of Arts and Culture, to see how they can maybe encourage initiatives of waste management.
Yeah.
I think there is one that I can remember of a friend who is using presently tires to make a house with it. I saw the house. I think some